as we respond and as we have over the last several months, that incurs financial obligations and costs. And so I wanted to give a quick update to what we have seen with our COVID-19 funding, both in the CARES Act and the ARPA funds that have recently been distributed by Congress. So just as a quick reminder, this is CARES Act funding CARES Act was the legislation that was passed last year. This is a slide we've shown in the past that compares to our peer communities. The township has received a little under $1 million total in CARES funding. The darker green there, the $715,000. That was Harris County's per capita funding that they provided to the township for our population within the village of Creesack Park. And then the $244,000 was what Montgomery County provided. Speaking of Montgomery County in particular, just as a reminder to the board, Montgomery County had an application process that local jurisdictions could apply through. We did 2 submissions, one that complied with the rules and the outline of the criteria, eligibility criteria, that the county established for themselves, and then also one that met the full CARES Act eligibility. The program that Montgomery County did was a little less inclusive than the CARES Act, and so that just is a reminder that we had about a total of $6.1 million in obligations and expenses that we would submit to Montgomery County, of which we're outstanding still about $5.8 million. Recently, the chairman had met with Judge Keough, President Jones, and Senator Creighton got together to talk about the CARES funding. There's, about where the money should be coming from and how, as a community in a direct funded jurisdiction, where we should be receiving our money. And in response to that meeting, which occurred in June, Senator Creighton sent us a letter at the first part of July indicating, and I pulled out the quote there that's most relevant, that after speaking to the governor's office, the TDM officials at the Texas Division of Emergency Management, it's clear that the state does not have allocated CARES funds remaining, and that we should be looking to Montgomery County to provide any level of funding as it relates to the CARES Act. I'm going to shift gears and then go to the American Rescue Plan Act. As you know, we have been working diligently with Treasury and others in the federal administration to try to secure our fair share or equitable share of ARPA funds. This is just a quick chart that outlines some of the jurisdictions that you'll recognize in the amount of ARPA funding they're receiving. And then that gap on the left there is just a break in the scale, because obviously the counties and the city of Houston receive substantially larger amounts of money than the smaller jurisdictions. And so it was just a way to be able to break the scale there so I could fit it all onto one slide. But as you'll see, the smaller jurisdictions, Magnolia, Montgomery, Oak Ridge, North Shenandoah, for example, there were about 1,145 jurisdictions that qualified as what we call non-entitlement units in the state of Texas. About 1,000 of those, give or take, should be receiving their money this week on the first tranche. You may remember in ARPA, those funds get distributed over 2 years, 2 different tranches, but those dollars are actually going out the door as we speak. So staff has been working with our advisors in Washington, Brownstein, and others to petition Treasury and to work with the administration on securing our ARPA funds. We've had a call with Treasury just a few weeks ago where Treasury outlined the methodology about how they came to the conclusion of why the township wasn't eligible for funding, or in our position had omitted funding. What was missing here is we submitted public comment before the July 16th public comment deadline, outlining 2 arguments. One, that we qualified as a non-entitlement unit of local government per the law and the definitions used in the law. And absent that, we actually also qualified as a metropolitan city under the same definitions, and we outlined all the reasons why. So when we spoke to Treasury, they provided us explanation of their methodology. And in fact, I just left my phone over there, I need to bring it up. The bottom line is so we had talked to them about the methodology, and then we had some continued questions about the metropolitan city status as well. And Treasury sent us a response Monday of this week, and I apologize, it was supposed to be there with a direct quote. But the quote from, or the position from Treasury was that we would have needed to be an incorporated entity in order to be funded under ARPA. And so they basically said the methodology and the definitions they use for both metropolitan city and any use status require being incorporated before you can then determine which pot of money that you should be eligible for. And so we are going to be issuing a rebuttal to Treasury, arguing some additional, making some additional arguments to why we still believe Treasury has within their scope the discretion to include the township within those definitions, even in our current status. And so that's what we're currently actively working on, and we'll continue to address those issues in the coming weeks and continue our dialogue with Treasury and the White House on trying to receive our ARPA funds. And again, once we get those ARPA funds and we're successful doing so, then those go back to being able to obviously pay for and reimburse the public safety and emergency response efforts that we've made through our fire department and through our own programs in order to be able to respond directly to the COVID pandemic within our own community.